I'm just gonna click the record button. Um, Not now. I'll click the record button whenever I feel like we're jumping straight into it. So, how you guys feeling today? How was your day?
I'm doing alright, but we gotta pull through.
Okay. What about you, Raf? How you doing? All right, nice. Lewis, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right.
All right, cool. All
I
right.
don't know if you guys could tell, but I was just had a thumbs up and that was
Did you thumbs up a non-existent camera?
it. Yeah.
Love you, man.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. Yes. Yes.
All right,
Whenever
boys.
there's an awkward silence, just a thumbs up.
Boys. We have to jump in. So, obviously, we know that Marvel right now, and I'm pretty sure for most of the time it's been in cinema,
It's
is
killing it.
just having a fucking ball, right? It is
They
probably
have all my money at this
it
point.
is
They have
having a
all my money.
big monopoly on the superhero film genre. And as much as I love my Marvel characters, as much as I love my Spider-Man, my Shang-Chi's of the world, I really want to
I mean,
see a lot of
because
DC properties back on the screen, you know? So today's topic is, how can DC fix a lot of the issues they have with their movies, and what would we want to see them do in future projects?
You know what's crazy? Real quick.
What's up?
So, the three most popular, like in general, overall, the three most popular characters are Spider-Man, Superman, and Batman, right? Overall.
Yeah.
As of recently, because a friend of mine and I did this research because we were having an argument with someone else. As of recently, the three most popular heroes in general, just right now, that are searched up all over the globe are, and I quote, Spider-Man, in this order: Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, and Batman.
Wow.
So tell me this, right? No matter what, Batman's always there and another DC character. So tell me how, in popularity, DC has more than Marvel, yet their movies are fucking garbage.
I think it's something that I think everyone in this call can agree on, that DC has so many amazing characters that have not gotten a light on the main like theater slash film stage, or
Unless they
have.
can get the original ones right.
Fair. Um, Thinking back to what I believe to be really good pieces of DC, I guess, cinema, you look back at the Dark Knight trilogy. I think everyone, when they want a good example of what a DC film could be, it is the Dark Knight trilogy. Um,
Pretty much.
what are you guys' thoughts on the Dark Knight trilogy? I know I haven't watched it in years, but I still remember that shit being a banger.
To be honest,
It,
no wait, go Lewis, go Lewis. I'll go after.
I was about to say is like that's like one of the first superhero films I watched completely, in like Netflix or like what was it in CDs. I bought it from like Redbox probably. One of the best films I ever watched as a superhero film, and I
Okay.
gotta say,
All right.
as a trilogy, pretty fucking good.
Hmm.
And that should have been the start from the DC.
Now,
Should have started the
I
DC
want to hear
universe.
from Mr. DC fanboy himself, Grimmo. Grimmo, what do
Oh,
you have to say about the Dark Knight trilogy?
well, like honestly speaking, honestly
I'm gonna love this.
Uh, the directing and writing was awesome, but the character choices, they were very whitewashed. They were like just straight up just cast a white man for every single fucking role you could find in that movie.
Bane was the best
Every,
example of
like Ra's al Ghul is Arabic. Cast Liam Neeson. Bane is all Caribbean. He has, well, his father was from Britain, but he was raised and born in the Caribbean. Cast Tom Hardy. Like what? Who the fuck? Selena Kyle, right? She's been, obviously she's been white, she's been mixed, she's been black, she's been Hispanic, especially with her last name. But still, like white. Just all, like every person
Well,
was white. And like when you have such an ambitious and such a great movie as that one, like you want
Ambitious?
diversity. You want
that. That would be such a great way to that would be such an easy way to push diversity, especially because of like how great it
exactly,
was.
because it was already good. Like it wasn't specific. Like the actors were amazing. Don't get me wrong. The actors were amazing, but the movie itself was already holding itself. Right. The movie did its job. It wasn't like it got carried by the actors. It was carrying itself. So if you would have pushed diversity in that moment, like that would have been perfect.
So I'm thinking regarding the obvious issue of just not having too much diversity with characters that should be diverse. The movies proved as like sort of like a, I guess, sort of a point that these movies, these like DC dark edgy movies, could work, and audiences will go out and watch them. So my question
Then
to you
it's
guys,
Batman.
that is true. I mean, anything Batman related, the general media loves, or the general population loves. So I want to ask you guys. I think for me, what I miss is sort of like what Grimmo was talking about. That sort of directing, writing, that direction, and that kind of focus that DC had. Well, not with DC. I guess you can say that that it had with The Dark Knight is sort of lost to time as more DC films comes out. To be honest with you, I think the greatest DC film that has come out of in recent times is the Suicide Squad.
That is true. The new
The
Suicide
newest.
Squad-
To be clear, the newest one.
The
yeah,
newest-
the new one. The new one got carried, obviously, because we know who is the director.
Yeah,
But
James Gunn did such a good job with this
Yeah.
movie.
like it got carried, but
Yeah. But the thing is, it's crazy how it overshadowed a lot of, like, I guess, high-end superhero movies. Like, it did so much better than Aquaman. It did so much better than Shazam, in my opinion. Birds of Prey didn't even compare. Wonder Woman 1984 was nothing close to what Suicide Squad was. And it was
all right, so-
Well, that's not a good comparison because Wonder Woman
yeah,
84
no.
didn't compare to Wonder Woman 1.
No,
That's
no, no,
true.
no.
Hey,
Hey,
part of
but
the
also
first Wonder Woman.
Shazam is not even on the fucking toes of Suicide Squad. Like Shazam was a decent movie, but you like think about it this way: how is the adult version of Shazam more kid than the kid himself?
well, that's also
Yeah, I
like
felt like
that's-
the act.
I think
that was
it's
just
also
a
kid
casting
actor.
choice.
It's
And I
also
was
kid
just-
actors, you know.
Like,
No, that was like also DC. That was like a whole. That's a whole thing that I absolutely like. Shazam is one of my favorite characters. Like, and I hated this. I hated watching this movie. Like, I hated watching Shazam purely
True.
because of like that matchup just didn't make sense. Because if you
It
wanted to
didn't.
go because if you wanted to make that darker tone, like in previous movies, like having that darker tone with like Billy Batson being a little bit older and darker and more serious, that's fine. But like, then don't cast Zachary Levi because he's literally like he's
He's a
literally
kid.
yeah,
He's a
like
kid.
he's like a grown up kid, which is
Yeah.
which is fine. But like, make a choice. Don't do both. Like, it's fine if you want him to be kid like, but also make the
I
actor like
sense
a lot
so much
like,
aggression
younger.
from Ralph. He's like pissed.
Yeah.
It's like,
Dude,
it's
I
like
hated
you
this
get,
movie. Like,
you get passionate about certain topics, and like when
Yeah.
you think about it, like think about it this way, right? Like, all right, I'm happy that they casted Zachary Levi, but it's just the problem is like if you're gonna make Shazam,
it was just a
you
matchup.
have to understand that the two actors have to keep it consistent. They
Yeah.
are one character. Shazam doesn't turn into a whole different
Yeah.
person. It's the same person with different
was-
like body. Like it's the same person on a different body, right?
Yeah.
It's like what's it called in Naruto? The girl that could transfer her mind. I forgot her name.
Ino?
Ino. Yeah, it's exactly like Ino. It's the same person just transferring their mind to someone else, which is obviously the body of Shazam, which the Shazam wizard gave. But
Yeah, the matchup
it's
just
like-
kind of ruined it.
like so tell me how young like Billy Batson, he's all like fucking punky and oh yeah, I'm cool.
Like, he's like that cool kid. Yeah, like he's got that cool kid
Like,
vibe.
I don't believe in superheroes and stuff like that. And then he turns into Shazam. It's like, oh my god,
He's
it's
like,
the
oh,
Justice League. Oh! Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Like, he's
What
literally just
is this?
like he starts nerding out over himself, and I'm just like, yo, are you serious?
Bro, like,
like-
it's like, weren't you fucking afraid of superheroes a few minutes ago? And you're telling me that out of nowhere you spark lightning in you and you turn into more of a kid that you were before? Like, what?
I think we now have a general understanding of the feeling of Shazam in this room, and now for the rest of this podcast, I will try not to mention Shazam.
Now
Continuing,
you're gonna get us fuming.
continuing.
No, don't even touch Aquaman. 'Cause it's
I'm not. We're not gonna touch Aquaman. There's so much shit behind that movie.
No, but
No, stop.
no, but back
No,
to the main
Grim-
topic. No.
Okay.
Back to the main
Okay,
topic.
okay,
Back
okay,
to the
okay,
main
okay.
topic. on how Suicide Squad was such a great movie, right? So, rating Shazam, honestly, probably a 4, maybe 5. If
We're not rating this movie right
no, no,
now.
no. I'm just saying, right? But Suicide Squad, I think it's a grade 8, right, or 9. It
I
was
wouldn't go
just
so
so
in
good.
far.
terms
I
of,
wouldn't go so far as a
in terms
9.
of comparison.
I wouldn't go so far as a 9.
I mean, compared to what DC has had in the few years, not even months or like recent year, like few years, right? Because the new Wonder Woman was not good. I don't care who you are or what you say, it wasn't a good movie. It was not.
Hmm.
Um, Other than that, we had, of course, we already talked about Shazam. What other
We
movie?
actually had a very good standalone movie come in, Joker, which at the beginning,
Joker,
Joker was
I
very
think,
controversial. It was very like with the general public, but as it's not even you can't even consider it a superhero movie.
yeah, it's not. It's
This
more like a
movie is just
psychological movie.
yeah, it's something so on its own that's so departed from superhero movies as a genre that you can't really consider it. It's still a really great movie that DC made, but
Yeah,
if we're
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
the premise of what we believe as superhero movies, like as you see in Marvel movies, as you see in other DC films, you wouldn't. I couldn't consider it a superhero movie.
Yeah, because it's already a different category by the fact that
That's
they're
what
doing
made
a
it
movie.
great, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I'm not saying
different
it's a
because
bad
it's
movie
a
because it's not a
villain.
superhero movie.
Like the fact that it's a villain, it's already its own category. So now make a villain without powers, tell his origin through his like psycho analysis and like his actual living conditions,
Hmm.
and it breaks the character down that it hasn't done before. And it's beautiful movie. But you cannot compare it to like the Suicide Squad, where it's a bunch of crazy people shooting other people.
Okay, so I want to talk about the main topic, which we kind of discussed before, but we got into the tangent of Shazam and Aquaman. What? What? We really did just went like, yo, fuck Shazam, fuck Aquaman, fuck everything. But the question is,
Dude,
guys, I want to pose to you is what can we do? And I guess we can say what can we take from inspiration from Marvel movies and not take from Marvel movies that DC can do better.
Oh, that's not from Marvel.
Yes, because
like,
I think the problem with Marvel movies, and I guess the benefit with it is that a lot of Marvel movies, I don't believe there's like that many bad Marvel movies. There's more decent Marvel movies than there are bad ones, right? Like a bad one comes to mind, like Black Widow, sue me. Um, that movie had no right to exist. Um, but you also have movies like Ant-Man, which Ant-Man is a decent movie. It's not crazy. It's not anything like life changing, but it's gets the job done, you know. And I think there's also like I don't know where I'm going with this. I think the problem with Marvel, good thing about Marvel, they never really make bad movies. Everything is sort of decent. The problem is that sometimes it's really formulaic, and it gets really jarring when you notice that things are just the same all the time. So what can we take from Marvel as inspiration that we can put towards DC?
Honestly, this is funny because it's like they repeat what they like what Marvel does in comic. They repeat it to what they do in movies because most Marvel characters in comics, and again, if you're a comic book fan, don't be in denial or don't lie to yourself. But let's be honest, most Marvel characters are the same. There's basically those memes where it's like there's three type of men or whatever. There's three type of like Marvel characters. Okay, there's the fucking rough guy who kills everybody for no reason, Bucky, Punisher, etc. Sorry. Then there's the all good in a fucking bottle, fucking Captain America, Falcon, etc. Then there's the in between guys. It's just like they're sort of funny, they're sort of not, they're kind of corny, Ant-Man, Spider-Man, etc. So it's like there's not much of a diversity. Like the reason why Deadpool is such a token character is because he's the only one with the sauce. He comes in here and he says the most craziest shit ever, and because every Marvel character is so bland, they're like, "Holy shit,
Oh
he's
my
so
god, it's
fucking cool!
Deadpool.
Oh my
He
god,
said the F word.
someone said something other than watch your language. Wow!" So it's like it's that Mickey Mouse type stuff. And that's the problem is DC has the best diversity, but they're so terrible at putting it on screen because they're so caught up in trying to do Marvel. So I feel like that's what they should do. They should go away from Marvel, away from trying to, because in Marvel right now in the movies, they're making everybody to be funny. For some reason, everybody got a degree in comedy. Everyone.
I think something that I do agree with you on is that Marvel has a problem of it's not the problem of diversity because Marvel has that pretty much patted down. I think
Oh
it's
yeah,
the
they
problem
have like
of
physical diversity, just not mental.
distinguishing character traits from each other because like there's a lot of character traits that I see in Tony Stark that I see in basically most of the MCU. And well, that's okay, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I would like to see different archetypes of characters. So yeah, I think Graham, your point of having more diverse characterization of superheroes is actually a really good idea. I agree with that wholeheartedly because Superman isn't the same as Batman, Wonder Woman isn't the same as Superman, and the Flash isn't the same as Green Lantern. They're their own different people with their own different
Exactly.
weights and
Exactly.
emotional damage.
There's also Hawkman, bro. Hawkman is very different from everybody. This man
Yeah,
lives
they
in the
all
trench,
Yeah,
bro.
shout out
they
to him in
literally
the
all
animated series being an
Yo,
actual fucking stalker.
yeah.
That man was just like, I see you.
Yeah, and the worst thing is in comics he's sort of like that. There, he's just standing there and he's like, "I've seen things." Like, how long have you been there?
He's like, yo, Batman. And he's like, shit, where are you from? He's like, I came through the vents.
It's like
One
that
of
one
those?
comic book where Batman sneaked up on Superman and Lois in their kitchen, like he just appeared, and let's just say
That's so
things
messed
weren't
up.
yeah, let's just say it wasn't good for him, so he had to learn a lesson.
I think I saw that somewhere on Instagram. That was funny. Um, yeah, I think for me, definitely something DC can improve on is sort of just diversifying their characterization of their already pre-existing superheroes. Like Batman, the problem, like, let's talk about different superheroes that could benefit from this. Ben Affleck's Batman, kind of weird. It's kind of all over the place, if you ask me. As much as I think he would have made a great Batman. But there's just some things that I feel were kind of weird with him, where he sort of has like, let's talk about Justice League, but not the good one, right?
It's like he's trying to be serious, even though he's not.
Yeah, like Justice League, 2017 version, really shows so much inconsistency with his character. Even though I know this is not the version of the movie that people will
I blame
consider
Joss Whedon.
canon, because you have the Snyder Cut, but the Snyder Cut is also not canon. Like if we're talking about
He only
movies that
retconned it,
are existing and are affecting other movies, Justice League 2017 is affecting other movies more than the Snyder Cut is.
which is terrible.
It is terrible
Unfortunately.
because in the Snyder Cut, you get the origin story of Aquaman. And frankly, it does so much better for Aquaman than Aquaman does for Aquaman.
You know what's funny is though, like in the Snyder cut, like there are certain things that shouldn't have been changed. In fact, of like actually being relevant to the main story that they're trying to do.
Yeah.
But they were like, you know what? Just because we don't like Snyder, just because we don't like him, we're gonna make his whole story just not exist.
Yeah, it's not cool. I just don't like that a lot. Um
Plus, they gave a
something
lot of characters they gave a lot of characters like Flash and Cyborg like in Snyder Cut. Like they gave them so much character development and actual like
well that's
gave them
well
time to
that
get
was
to
with that whole thing
get
with
to
what was
see all
going
the
on with
stuff.
Cyborg. And
That's
it was so
man.
fucked up. Lewis, I haven't heard you in like actually 15 minutes. What's up? What are your thoughts?
I just like how you guys go more in like the comics. Me thinking about as the movie aspect, I think they had to organize it really better.
Yeah,
They're going
that is
all over the
true.
place. They're trying, like we mentioned
The thing
before,
is, I
they were
feel like
trying to
they
keep
should.
up with Marvel.
Yeah, I feel like they should take it one movie at a time instead of
Yeah.
like because Marvel's philosophy, like, and has been since like Iron Man, is like if this movie works out, we'll make another one. Like
Yeah, I think that was something
we're not
that
trying to try to get let's not try to get ahead of ourselves too much. Let's just
Mhm.
see how it goes. Let's just see how it plays out. But DC's kind of like from the minute like that Man of Steel did well and they announced Batman v Superman, they already announced so many other projects like Cyborg, Flash, Wonder Woman, Aquaman. They announced all those projects as soon as they announced Batman v Superman, and it was kind of just like, okay, cool, you got this plan.
Yeah,
But Batman v Superman was kind of shit.
I think the problem with it is that they really have to focus on building a cinema audience for each of these characters. Because Man of Steel, everyone is waiting for a Man of Steel 2. Am I wrong?
No,
Fair enough.
I'm very proud of people actually want us with the same flavor that Man of Steel 1 had.
Yeah,
Not like
but that's because Man of Steel, the original, does such a good job of portraying a live-action Superman in the modern time. Now, what if we had that for Ben Affleck's Batman? We didn't. And that's why it made Batman v Superman so jarring to me. Because we never get to establish the Batman character before this movie. Like,
Yeah, plus you really don't. Yeah, it's not like his character is not established at all.
yeah.
Like you kind of
It's
just
so
know him as,
bizarre.
hey, that's Batman. What does that mean?
Yeah, I think the problem with DC, and I agree with everyone here, is that they really tried to make a universe before making the characters. Like they they made the building without making the foundation. You know?
yeah. It's like having having Legos instruction, but then being like, you know what? I'm gonna just grab what I see from the box and I'm gonna just put that part, and then you forget the whole back. It's
Yeah,
like in the front, it looks pretty. It's like, oh look, he built the Eiffel Tower, and then you look behind it, it's missing like the whole set. It's like, oh, what happened here?
yeah. It's kind of insane. So, two things I think DC should work on is definitely characterization and baby steps. They definitely need to be more
That's funny.
like
It's funny that
year
like,
to
isn't the
year.
Flash coming up?
I don't care, man. If I'm being honest with you, I would love to see Urza Miller more as a Flash, but I think as soon as this movie, I think DC just wants to get the Batman,
They're gonna
Black
reboot.
Adam, the
They're gonna
Flash
reboot.
out. They just want them
Yeah.
Yeah,
out
they're
the
definitely
door as fast as
they're
like.
definitely trying to reboot.
Do you guys even know that Aquaman 2 is coming out next year? I didn't. I
I'm
forgot
not
it
watching.
until I'm looking
I'm
at
not
this list
watching.
right now.
I'm boycotting. I'm boycotting. I do not want to see Amber Heard.
I'm just saying that I even
Well, the
forgot
Flash
that
2
most
was
of these
supposed to be like
movies.
rebooting
came
the
out.
whole universe at that point.
See, and that's also another thing that we have to talk about is that because of how shitty their mistakes were in the past, they now have to reset their cinematic universe because they realize, oh shit, this kind of blows.
And they're only like 3 to
Well,
4
well-
movies in. Like they're only
if we're
2
talking
connecting
about
movies in.
let's say the DC extended universe starts at Man of Steel. It took them what is it? From 2013 to 2022. It did not last long. And it only took
Well-
I think what we're talking about for 1, 2 we're taking Suicide Squad. Do you think is Suicide Squad part of the DCU?
I don't
Uh,
count it.
No, it is. It
Yeah.
is. It
So
is.
we're saying
Because
1,
remember,
2, 3,
the first
4,
one, the
5.
first one, is still, yeah, the
6.
first one is still canon, right? And the first one already had Ben Affleck, so by association, it is
You count the new one as canon?
yeah, the new one is because remember they talk about the first one, right? And in the first one they had Batman, so everything is canon.
It's kind of crazy.
Okay.
They had 10 movies, like more like a little bit under 10 movies since 2013.
How many of them were good though?
That's the problem. You know, like not all of them are just have an inconsistency of like shitty to good quality to okay quality to wow, this is amazing with the Suicide Squad. Also, I do want to include that the Batman is not out yet by the time of this recording. I hope to God that this movie is good. I really hope this
no,
movie's
I think
good.
it's gonna be good.
I honestly
so.
I am thinking it's gonna be good because if it's anything other than good, I'm just completely switching to Marvel.
Yeah.
I'm over here
I think it's
using
gonna be.
The
There's no
Batman,
hope.
the Batman has to
I
do
think the
good.
Flash is gonna be bad.
No,
I
like,
think
I-
the Flash is gonna be
no,
bad.
yeah, the Flash movie is gonna be terrible. Don't get that shit's gonna be.
Like no, not
disgusting.
only that they're trying to bring Michael Keaton into the universe, is that what you hear from
They're
rumors
trying to do a
after
ripoff.
the Flash?
They're trying to do like
No,
a scuffed version of the Spider movie. Like
Yeah,
they're just
but
trying to
not
do a
only that,
shittier
they're
version
trying
of
to
that.
make Michael Keaton their own Batman. Like they're kicking Affleck out and playing Michael Keaton as their official Batman for the universe. Because in the Batgirl, who has J.K. Simmons as Commissioner Gordon, they're putting Michael Keaton into that Batgirl movie as well. So they're officially after the Flash, he's the new Batman.
It's just stupid.
Michael Keaton
Plus
is
what
the
like
new
plus what you
Batman
hear
again. That's
plus what
kind
you
of
hear
crazy.
about
Yeah.
the script. Plus what you hear about the script for the
Like,
movie, it's kind of weird. It's like a mix of like the script of the movie sounds like a mix of what we hear about Multiverse of Madness for Doctor Strange and Spider-Man No Way Home. It's like you kind of like you're getting a mix of it, but in a
I really feel like it's
it
already
sounds
too much. It's too soon.
it
Like,
sounds
of course we're gonna love it. We're gonna love Flashpoint.
No,
like
I
you're
don't
gonna
think we
love the
will.
like
I don't
it's
think
like
I'm gonna
I
love
don't
this
think.
movie.
I don't think we
I
will.
really don't
Because
think I'm
listen,
gonna love
listen,
this
listen,
movie.
listen.
No, you're
You
gonna love
know,
the idea. You're gonna love the idea. It's like, oh, it's similar to what we felt like
this
with Spider-Man. Like,
this sounds like such a
look,
great pitch, but it sounds like it's not gonna get executed right.
no, because
yeah,
the problem is they don't know how they're doing it, right? They know what they want to do, but they don't know how they're doing
no,
it
they don't
because
know
Plus,
they're
you
what they
know how
want
many
to do.
so
They don't.
plus
stubborn.
they
You
Because
rewrote
nah,
their
look,
script
look,
like four
you
times.
look, we have two. All right, we have two Flashes, right? The same character, Ezra Miller, playing the Flash. Just one of them is a villain, and the other one is the hero, right? Then we have a
Yeah, that's
Supergirl
basically his
who
own
is a
reverse Flash.
daughter of Superman, but Warner Bros doesn't want to do anything with what's his name
Henry
again?
Cavill.
Henry Cavill. So it's like,
The Witcher?
how does this make sense? And then they also want
Well,
to have a new Batman, but the Ben Affleck confirmed that he is in the movie for like a scene, and it's like they really want to like bring all these characters that people love, but because they're so stubborn, they rather replace them with other people that nobody's gonna care about. So it's like this big crossover movie with the rejects of your favorite characters.
Yeah, I mean, so let's
well,
let's
they're
review.
also replacing Henry Cavill as well. Like they're
Are
thinking
they
about doing a
actually like
Black
dead
Superman
ass?
movie.
Please tell me they're not actually replacing Henry
Yeah,
Cavill.
because there's a lot of news
They're
about like Black
like
Superman, but like
they're
the script
implying it.
being
Hold on.
yeah, like there's a lot going on with like Black Superman and
Like
him
I'm pretty
being
sure The
and him
Rock
actually still
said
like
something about it as well.
Okay, wait.
and him
Ralph,
still
continue.
being Kal-El, like Black Superman, but still being Kal-El, like him growing up on the farm, the same thing except he's black. Like
All right, Lewis,
it
what were you
just
gonna
makes
say?
no sense.
Lewis, you're muted.
Think he probably had to say do something. But look. The problem is, look, I would love a black Superman. I would diversity. Give me that shit. But the problem is, you can't just switch. What's it called, Clark Kent, because you want to, or because you want
Yeah,
diversity.
just because
There's
you
literally,
want
yeah,
diversity, like there's
exactly.
literally
There's
a Black
Calvin
Superman.
Ellis. Yeah, there's Calvin Ellis. Ellis, sorry, who became president. Like he's already his own character who does awesome shit. And the fact that you rather not use him because you want to replace someone else, it's like no, like give someone else the spotlight who's gonna kill it.
I think the problem is less with the diversity part and the more just being consistent with their characters. So let's review some of the stuff that we said that DC should improve on. One is the characterization of their most biggest characters, and it's two, making sure that all of them have a good solo outing before uniting them for something. I think that's why Cyborg didn't feel genuine in Justice League. It's why the Flash didn't feel that great in Justice League, even though he was kind of alright. I heard a lot of people say that they liked him. There's a lot of things that they could have avoided if they had just properly built their universe. But instead, they decided to make a cash grab, which didn't really pan out in the end. But I want to talk about some stuff that they shouldn't take inspiration from Marvel, and I'm gonna start with sticking to a formula. I feel like not every movie has to be super different, super diverse, and it doesn't have to be soul shattering. But it shouldn't be what most basic Marvel movies are, and have the same beats, same plot points, same quips. I don't want that for DC, and I want DC to just try to figure out a way to just not stick to a certain formula for most of their big movies.
Yeah, it's just like I kind of agree. Like they don't having something different is fine. Like that's where you're gonna play your strength at because Marvel kind of follows a bit of a formula when it comes to like origin story movies. Like,
Yeah.
but I feel like plus DC has so much opportunity to, especially if you're taking inspiration from the comics. It's like The comic books were really well, like a lot of the comic books, like for origin stories, are well written. Like whether or not it was rebooted or not, but like still, like they have a lot of inspiration to take from. But sometimes they just choose not to go that route, and especially for like I don't know, like back to Shazam for example, like they decided to take it like one step further and to the superhero origin story, like they actually followed the formula there, and it kind of felt like a copying your homework type thing from
Yeah.
Marvel, and it didn't feel like for kids it would be like for kids it's genuinely fine, like it'll sell tickets, it'll get kids excited about the movie, but
Yeah.
like as a Shazam fan, I wanted to die watching that movie.
The thing is also like
Guys,
I think
please don't
the
do
worst
not
part
make
is
this a Shazam
no, no,
ranting
no, 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 no,
podcast.
no, no, no. Like, no, no. It's gonna like
I was
it's
really
gonna just
scared
tie
when Ralph
in.
was talking.
No, this is gonna tie into just all DC in general. It's like DC sometimes forget that they have a lot of characters, right? Like Shazam for us comic book lovers, we know who Shazam is. Like he's a
Mhm.
common everywhere. But to like casual people who just watch movies and stuff like that, they have no fucking clue who Shazam is. And the worst part is they have no clue who the fuck other heroes are who are amazing, but DC just keeps on recycling the same people over and over. So like you end up having films like Shazam, which is like something to bring a character and something to develop a character nobody else knows that watches like movies casually, and then you make something goofy like that and just ruin the character from the start.
Yeah.
It's like making so the one of my favorite shows as a kid was Legion of Superheroes, and it was because it was like very close to comic book accurate. If you want to debate on this, we fucking can. But that like the personalities and the way people react is almost fucking comic book like it was almost perfect.
Yeah.
And so like when you see something like that, right? And it's like holy shit, that's so awesome. And then you see the movies that are going now and stuff like that that have no correlation. It's like how can a show for kids be more accurate and better than a movie that was made with an entire production behind it and entire visionaries, and it's like and it's still trash. Like
I think for me, um, I don't want. Okay, so for me, I'm not a big um advocate for comic book accuracy. I feel like there's a lot of things in comics that would just look goofy in live action, right? Um, but I think they should just do what Marvel does and just rip some of their biggest stories. Spoilers for No Way Home, but No Way Home rips is probably one of the most controversial comic book Marvel stories in history for Spider-Man. And it was a moment in time, right? Was it am I right, Lewis?
Yes, one at a time.
One moment in time, and it rips half of the plot from One Moment in Time, and then rips another plot from Spider-Verse. I don't think it's like what Grimm said. They have the characters, they have the story. What is stopping them from just making a Batman that is Batman Year One, and then progress to Batman? I don't know, the Killing Joke. You know,
if not
there's
only
so
that,
much.
like
Yeah,
they haven't established like animated universe. Like the
well,
animated universe, if
that
you
is
watch.
something I want to talk about later.
All right, well, just touching like very lightly on that. Like they have an established universe, right? So they obviously know when to touch comic books. They obviously know that they can use comic book as source material and that it will gain some sort of momentum. So tell me how you have great actors, right? You have great actors, you have great writers, you have a great production team, and you have directors. Yet, because you're so stubborn and so selfish with characters and what happens, that you rather it flop to ruin one person's career that you don't like.
I think that it's also I think we can also agree that the reason why DC movies are so inconsistent is because of the production company that it's under. What Warner Brothers Media, or I don't know what it's like their official name, but Warner Brothers is just not really handling their DC properties correctly. And it's something that I believe is the first thing that they should take from Marvel and it's using your properties correctly. And a good example of that is taking a basically unknown character and making it a household name. I think a good example of that recently is Shang-Chi. I never heard of Shang-Chi before his origin story movie. And I love his character now. He's probably one of my top 10 favorite superheroes. And
No,
to,
Raph and I were excited for Shang-Chi before it came out. Like we were talking how it's gonna be
yeah,
great
for
'cause
comic
it's,
book fans, Shang-Chi is like a big favorite.
yeah,
But for a
he's like
person who
he's like Shazam. Honestly, he's exactly like Shazam. It's a character that comic book people love, but it's a character that nobody who is just like casually watching the movies just to watch them will understand or know who they are.
yeah, and to see how well they executed his first movie, it brings me hope for like other things like Young Avengers. It brings me hope for other teams like the Defenders. Please fix that team. Um, the Dark Avengers that hopefully comes in the future with the introduction of some Osborn in the MCU universe. Um, I there is so much that DC can do, and like you said, Grim, their characters are twice as popular as one Marvel character. There's always at least two DC characters in the top 3 searched superheroes or most popular superheroes. So why not capitalize on that? Why not make something that people can enjoy while also being something that seems familiar? Like, if you are 2 movies deep into Batman and his trilogy ends with the Killing Joke, I wouldn't care if I already read the comic. If it's a good story, it's going to be a good story in the cinema. I think DC truly has a lot to work on with their live action movies. And this is a great transition. Thank you, Grim. And like Grim said, they can learn a lot from their animated movies. Now, let's talk about the DC animated universe because yes, this is actually a thing for people who don't
That shit was
follow.
fire.
Yeah, for people who don't follow a lot of the DC animated movies, they
That's where
are
you're gonna find
all
most of the best of these.
yeah. That's where you find most of like DC's probably best like movies is
You can
a
probably watch on
straight to
HBO Max.
Blu-ray, straight to Blu-ray DVD movie, and it's insane because what they do is that they just animate classic comic book stories, like the Killing Joke movie, the anime movie that came out. I think was probably one of the most bought Blu-ray slash digitally downloaded movies that the DCAU had. And because
It was really good.
it's because it's the Killing Joke.
It was-
It's an
it
iconic
was good.
story, you know.
Batman Under the Red Hood was also good.
Now I do want to mention that the DCAU has an advantage where they don't need to establish characters. I feel like it's something that like they can just jump into to a story like Killing Joke and be like, yeah, this is Batman and he's doing this now, and that's their advantage. But also, DC doesn't have to do that for their live action. Like for example, Spider-Man. Spider-Man doesn't have a direct origin story in the MCU. He just sort of exists and does this thing. I know me, Lewis, and Ralph, we talked about how his trilogy is his origin story, and well, I can agree on it in some points. I like to think that his introduction was sort of just like he exists and now he's doing more.
It's like, do you need to say more about that?
Yeah,
we've
because like
seen-
I don't think we need to watch Bruce Wayne's parents get shot up in an alley for the 4th time.
Honestly, I think that's probably one like people for some reason they want an origin movie for Spider-Man, but I feel like that's the best thing they did because they already had 2 previous movies, right?
Yeah,
Obviously, the entire plots were different, but there was always that one same thing. Ben dies, he gets murked, and then he gets bitten by radioactive spider. So it's just like, all right, we know what the story is. Let's actually move
I
on to
think-
where we have to be.
and I think this is what I love about the Batman. The Batman's already Batman. Like Robert Pattinson's Batman is quoted to be year 1 Batman, meaning that not
Oh, it was year
only
2.
are we gonna have, is it year 2 or year 1?
I heard it was you too.
It doesn't matter as long as
It
it's
doesn't
young.
matter. It is a
It's-
Batman
it's
who
not-
is
it's not point
inexperienced.
zero.
It's a Batman who is inexperienced, who is still naive about a lot of the things he has to do for crime fighting, which means that if there are more installments in his version of Batman, there is more growth to be had for his character. And that is something that the audience would love. That's something I would love. That's something most comic book readers would love, is to just see a character grow. And you don't need to shoot his parents for the fucking 5th time to show us how much he's grown. So I think that's one thing the DC live action movies can take from the animated ones. You don't need to introduce who Batman is because everyone knows who Batman is. You don't need to introduce who Superman is because everyone knows who Superman is. Now, other characters like, I'm just going to throw it out. I'm pretty sure everyone knows this. That's like someone in the know of comic books. Green Lantern. You might have to introduce Green Lantern in a Superman story. You might need to introduce it in a side project. But I don't think that a lot of what the audience is looking for is an origin story. Not anymore, at least. There's a lot of good like superhero movies that people rate highly that isn't the origin story anymore. Like, I guess you could say the exception is Shang-Chi, because no one besides comic book readers knew who he was. They needed an origin story for him.
And that was like probably like one of the best origin story movies.
And it's done correctly. Like, you don't spend a lot of time of him having to have that motivation. He already has the motivations he needs to be a hero. He has the emotional conflict. He has sort of like the support system and supporting cast. You don't need to like make bonds. The bonds are already established with other supporting characters. It's done right. And I don't know. Unfortunately, this podcast would really just be us ranting about why can't the DC extended universe just be better, just be good.
That's the problem is, right. So they have movies like Joker, the Dark Knight trilogy, hopefully Batman, where they just look good from start to finish, right? They are those packages that are perfect, right? Then you have movies like Suicide Squad, the first Wonder Woman, Man of Steel, and such, where they're good movies. They're not the best, but they are good movies. They stand, right? But then everything else is just complete and utter trash. And I feel like the reason why it's complete and utter trash is because they have no organization. Like, for example, DC is the best at using the multiverse in the comics, because Marvel loves to be mainstream. Marvel just likes one straight line. Meanwhile, DC, well, I mean, they changed the timeline here and there, but DC literally makes comic books about places like the Elseworld comic books, where it's just different like stories for different, like the same characters. Just
like they're the king of the multiverse.
Exactly. Like they are good at the multiverse. They are good at being like bringing different ideas at once and still having a main universe you could continue on without having to care about the
I also
stories.
want to add something real fast that I think Spider-Man No Way Home, the recent Marvel movie, probably is the most complicated Marvel will ever be for multiverses, because
we haven't seen Doctor Strange yet.
Yeah, but like I'm talking about the amount of branch timelines and like alternate universes that movie ends with. I believe that movie ends with, if you're counting each villain going to their own separate universe, a minimum of 6 different alternate universes in one movie being created by one event. Marvel doesn't like doing that often. You know, they did something I think a couple of years ago, like Infinity Warps, where they mash 2 characters together and they sort of have a story, I guess. But they don't really like to dive deep into, like Grim said, these Elseworld stories, these stories of like, what if things change for these characters? And it's something that DC has such a strong grip over, and it's such a shame, because you have comics that I haven't read yet. White Knight is really popular. I know that a lot of the comic book readers really like the first White Knight comics, and they made a sequel. There's a sequel coming out for them. So it's not to say that people don't want to see it. People want to see different versions of their beloved heroes.
And there's also the current comic books, Knights of Steel, which is also technically like another multiverse.
Is that a sequel to Dark Metal?
No. So basically,
No.
they are actual knights, and I don't want to spoil much.
Okay.
But technically, they're like the same characters, just in like a medieval setting, and it's such a great comic book story, and it's brand new again.
Yeah, I read snips of it, and dude, it's like
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
way better
yeah,
than I thought
yeah,
it would be.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. It's holy shit. Like the story is just it's straightforward, but it's so good and it's so full of action, even though it's medieval, and it makes you want to be a knight, right? But back to like what we were saying is just like DC is good at already being able to be open to new ideas, but when it comes to their movies, they're so like they so want to have that straight linear idea, but they so also don't want to have that like allow other people to do what they want just because they want to be in charge. I
Yeah.
feel like if they use that whole multiverse thing, allow your directors to do what they want, but make it clear that it is from a different place in the multiverse, that would be better. Right? Like have a linear story and then have like multiverse things happening at once, which would be good. Like you could have two Batman movies on the same year, but it could be complete different Batmans. Like you have Gaslight, like the Gaslight storyline, go on right with a whole different Batman actor, and then you could have like the actual origin of Batman done well. Because if you think about it, there's no actual or like full on origin of Batman in a movie. Like it's not like Spider Man where the whole movie is about his origin. That just barely happens. And so, like, if you could do an origin of Batman, or if you wanted to,
It's
it still makes sense because there's a whole multiverse that they love to manipulate in comics that they don't do at all in movies.
I think it's so funny because we brought up the idea that whatever DC does is the reverse in cinema, and it's the same thing with the multiverse. DC is so not ready to jump into the multiverse, while Marvel is just like, yeah, fuck it, let's just, you know what, you want an evil Doctor Strange, we give it to you. You want Tom Cruise as Iron Man, you got it. And I think
it's because
that's
they already have like they realize that like well Marvel has their own formula like and they have what's working for them,
mhm.
but they also realize that like that's only gonna that's only gonna be appealing for so long, and you have to be willing to branch out. Otherwise, you're just gonna be stuck with the same vibe of your movies, and it's not gonna succeed. Well, it's not gonna surpass what you wanted to.
Yeah.
And DC doesn't have those opportunities, even though it like because it's not well established at all. Like it's literally origin stories are mixed up. There's no sense of timeline. Like there's no like like another advantage that the MCU has over DC is that MCU's timeline is like you at least have a year by year basis of what's going on, and you can at least place the movies and events on an actual timeline, so you know what's going on in order, like what's going on in the universe in order.
Mhm.
Well, in DC, it's kind of just like fuck it, whenever we want. Like you don't have like it could take place any modern day time, like literally any time.
Yeah. Um. So I think we can all agree that DC has a lot to work on and a lot of inspiration to take from pre-existing stories and other properties
Yeah,
that
because
they
it's not
have.
like they have to do exactly what Marvel's doing. Like they have
No,
so
they
much going
don't.
for
Yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah. Like for example, the whole multiverse thing that Marvel's doing now. To be honest, that's DC's whole thing.
Yeah.
DC could have taken that a long time ago. Like that, if DC wanted to start like that, they could have. And the problem is, right? So they said, we DC officially has a multiverse now, which is what they plan to do with Blue Beetle to have it in its own universe. But the problem is, right? They said that they never established it in movies. They also still have the rule that was made where if you have one project on a certain character, you cannot have any ongoing projects with that character. Say that you have a Batman project, live action, you cannot have any Batman in either movies or shows, which I think is kind of bullshit considering that you quote unquote have this multiverse open.
Yeah.
It's like saying,
Well,
yeah, we have
they've
the
been saying
multiverse.
that for a while.
Yeah, but like it's like saying, yeah, we have the multiverse open, but you cannot use the same characters even though they're from different universes. It's just, it's I took the
Yeah.
characters character locked.
So now, what I want to do, is probably to be the final segment of this podcast. I want to talk about what projects that DC hasn't announced yet that you think would benefit the DC extended universe slash just something fun that you guys would like to see. I want to start with Lewis, since Lewis literally did not talk for 80% of this podcast.
Oh, you guys took the whole show. I just
That
stayed
is
back and
true.
listened.
I can feel you eating the popcorn.
Yeah, I'm just
So,
starving out
Lewis,
here.
my question to you is, what DC property slash character would you want to see in a live action setting.
You know, live action. Are we talking about like what they rumored they might have,
No,
or
like
just like
something that
playing
they
out?
hasn't been
Just
rumored / already in production.
yeah. Come back to me on
Okay.
that.
Ralph.
Well, I think like a lot of the current comics are actually like really well done. I'd say like um what's it called? Uh the Distant Future comic, I forget what it was called.
Future State?
Future State. Yeah, I feel like a lot of Future State could be done in movies that like you don't necessarily have to you don't necessarily have to adapt. Like I feel like that would just be really cool to see like
Mm-hmm.
just the different takes on those characters like in a future state, like especially because like the setting is somewhat different as well. Like I feel like that would be really cool, and I would love to see that.
Yeah. And Grim, how about you?
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm very biased to this because mainly I love we already know I voice act, right? But I love voicing Bane, and I feel like they should do an I am Bane storyline. I think that would be fantastic, bro.
I
Because
think
in
that's pretty good because they already did really well with having a standalone Joker
Yeah,
story.
yeah, yeah. Like it was the standalone Joker movie was awesome, and by the fact that it didn't even like it wasn't a crossover. Like it wasn't looking for other characters to appear, and it wasn't looking for Batman to be a main antagonist. It was like Joker's story. But with the I Am Bane comic books and Rebirth, and because it's old, I'm gonna spoil the shit out of it. It's Bane establishing his identity as a villain. It's Bane literally breaking the fuck out of Batman and telling him, "I'm not a fucking clown." First of all, I am not a fucking dude that wants to riddle everything. I am not a fucking loser like every other villain that you fight. I am Bane, right? That's most of his quotes in the actual comic book.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you see Bane break Batman, obviously Batman, plot armor comes out successfully, but just seeing Bane do stuff to Batman that's never seen before, like breaking his mental, breaking his body, breaking everything, and just showing him as a Hispanic character because he even like says certain quotes in Spanish and stuff like that. It's like it's so great just to have a big Hispanic role stand out and make you feel proud of where you're from, especially since I'm Caribbean Hispanic. It's like you understand those island Spanish slangs, and you understand that rage that he has, and that low key machismo that's behind them, and it's like you sort of understand them.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. I think that would be really cool. I think standalone villain movies is such a great idea because there's plenty of DC villains that can have their own standalone movies, but I think Bane is also like on the top of that list because he also has a very big popularity due to like the Dark Knight trilogy. You know, he is the last antagonist of that trilogy, and I know you're talking about whitewashing, but I personally think Tom Hardy did a pretty good job as Bane.
No, I'm not
And
saying he did it, but
yeah,
it's
I know.
it's like making a black character white. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure more people would argue because again, I understand that Hispanics in like superhero community, we like they're very lacking. Not a lot of Hispanics
yeah.
are very like fightful for
I'm
their
just saying
characters and
that
stuff like
Tom
that.
Hardy's portrayal of
Yeah,
Bane.
it wasn't bad. It was good. But again, it's like it was taking away from a whole
Yeah,
community.
I'm just saying that things like that show the potential of having standalone villain characters not needing a superhero to be in it is very promising. You know, for me, what I would love to see, and this is sort of like, I guess something that we might never see, but I would love to see Super Sons. I would love to see a Super Sons story, or if you really want to get into it, a Legion of Superheroes story,
Bro,
a
bro,
Legion movie. For me, like I personally, I never watched a Legion cartoon. I just love the idea of having this. Like it doesn't even have to be in the future. Let's say you put it into like the near future for us. So
no,
instead of
no, no. All right, so let me
2021, it's
let me
like
give you a quick thing.
2029.
Usually, let me give you. I don't know if you read a lot of Legion comics. I do, obviously,
Go
but
for it.
a lot of the things is time travel, right? They travel through time and space because they are usually they're like the TVA, not really, but really, like they go back in
Unofficial
time and
TVA.
yeah, exactly, unofficial TVA. So their stories could be set in literally any time zone. So you're going right. Just continue where you're going, but trust me, they could be in any time
And
zone.
it also helps like the I guess the argument of like how well DC can not only do time travel but also like the multiverse, because you can also just change it so where they're like instead of traveling through time they travel to different worlds, and like that opens up their story and like what they can use drastically. And for Super Sons, I think I just liked when the original Super Sons comic came out, which was like what 3-4 years ago, right? Am I wrong?
Like I think 5. I
Five.
think
Oh
so,
yeah,
Wow.
it's older. It's
2016.
older because John has like a
Damn,
total
bro.
of 8 years in comic books now.
Damn, bro. I'm
Something like that.
old. This is not
Yeah,
good,
we're getting old. We're
bro.
old.
So Super Sons for me, when I first read that original comic, I was like, this is so nice. It's so refreshing to see not only
Yeah.
Damien in a different light, but to see John, just sort of become his own character too. I definitely think Super Sons is
Plus
something
your
I really want to see.
plus their character, like just their like them together is just so, it was just so nice to see, and
Yeah, it's
especially
such
like
a good
seeing John come
chemistry.
into
I
like
don't like that they aged what's it called,
John.
John,
Yeah,
because it
yeah, I didn't
ruined
like
that whole dynamic. It's like having like it's having a because
I was kind of
Damien is
sad when
so
they
different.
announced that.
Yeah,
I didn't follow Super Sons after the original run of the comic, but
yeah,
hearing
yeah.
that, I was kind of sad.
because their whole thing is like they're Superman and Batman but different, right? Like Damien is straight up a killer. Like this man
Oh,
wants to kill everybody for no reason.
speaking of Superman and Batman, but different, DC Zombies would be such a great movie. Like especially the recent run of it that they did with Damian becoming Batman, and I believe John also becoming the new Superman. Right? Am I wrong in their universe? I don't know. I haven't fully caught up with that comic, but that shit is fucking. It's so good. I think that story would definitely be translated well into a movie, and yeah, those are just a few things I would like to see. All right, gentlemen. Any last few words about DC before we wrap up this podcast?
I'd like to add on the Legion of the Superheroes thing real quick.
Sure.
So, as a big fan as I am, you could tell by my rock crin well cosmic boy picture on my Discord thing. But I just personally feel like it's a project that currently DC doesn't know how to handle, considering that it would be like you see this Flashpoint movie, it'd be better if they use the Legion instead of Flashpoint. Because Legion, a lot of times they go back in time and they try to change stuff to fix their future. So seeing a whole reset would be a Legion thing to do. Like for example, even with a Future Frontier, it happened because of the Legion. So it's like they have a bunch of team of
Like
characters
it's a
that
better
they
segue.
don't
Yeah.
even use.
But also think about this, and I think this is kind of funny that everyone has been speculating that Young Avengers is going to happen. When you look at young teen superhero, I guess teams, I think I just said that twice, but young superhero teams, DC does it better. Like
Does it does.
you have Young Justice, who is the proven example of young, not like some of them not like pre-existing or like genuinely known characters still working out to be amazing.
And you
You
have the
have
classics. You have Teen Titans.
yeah, you have like some of the Titans there. Like I think if I'm talking about Young Justice, you have some of the Titans there. You have Martian Manhunter's niece, right? You have Superboy, you have Artemis, you have Wally, who hasn't become the Flash yet at this point. And I guess it's like for me, I guess when I was watching Young Justice, it was so nice to see people around my age or like characters around my age just kicking ass, you know? And it's not hard to like make a good team despite it doesn't matter like their age. So, yeah, I think DC has so much room to work with. They have so many stories, so many characters that are so vivid and bright to add to the screen that it's a shame we have only seen like the cherry picked handful of them, you know?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
All right, boys. Thank you so much for joining the show. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this podcast. I really appreciate it. Shout outs to Aquaman, my favorite movie of 2018. You guys have a great night. Take care, everybody.